Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Cannon Club, Season 2, Episode 3. Make sure you guys like this podcast, like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another episode. We are here to chat about a couple of things. The transfer window is still open, so we'll talk about Merino becoming, getting announced. What do we think about his interview? What is he going to bring to the team? All that kind of stuff. What are we excited about? What are we concerned about? Eddie has now completed the second part of his medical at Crystal Palace, so does that really open up a spot for Arsenal to bring in an attacker? Do want to do a little recap on Villa. We finally got one over on the old Emery, which is great. And we're going to do a little Brighton preview. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into the smoke. I want to talk about Villa first because I feel like because the transfer window is still open, we've kind of glazed over the fact that we finally got one over on Emery after them doing the double over us. I think people were deleting drafts. They were deleting their reports. I think they already had the headline written. Emery does Arteta again. We get to avoid the constant conversations about whether or not Arsenal should have kept Emery and revisiting, history. And I think it was an interesting game because I personally don't think we played that well, but I didn't care because we won. What did you think about the performance, not the result?
Hi. The performance was like average. It was one of those games where you've watched 90 minutes and you can't really remember too much that excited you about the game. It's like there were so many injuries or breaks in play at the start that Villa took all of the enthusiasm out of the game and they made it so boring that we almost fell asleep a little bit. And then when they had those chances, it kind of woke us up again. But really, that low-key game, but kind of what I expected. I thought it would be tight. I thought it would be tense. They didn't press that much, so we found it quite hard to play out from the back. They occupied Timber pretty well. They occupied Partey pretty well. So when we did invert, those balls weren't there. So it was a very up and down game, but just a game that was the most important thing about the game was the result. Literally, we just had to win, and I'm glad we did it. And I'm glad we did it in a bit of an ugly fashion, because it just shows that we can do both sides. And even when we're not at our fluid best, now we have a team of monsters. So they're up for the fight. They're up for the challenge. You saw towards the end of the game, Saka giving it to their fans. I think Saliba, Gabriel celebrating tackles like a nastiness to our team that we don't usually have. And I love that. So, yeah, okay performance or average performance, but incredible result.
After the Wolves game, we kind of went through a couple of different players that maybe we had asterisks next to, let's visit these conversations around these particular players. And I'd like us to update that now that we've seen 2 games. Now, both of us, I think, assumed that Zinchenko would start or play in this match, and he did not, which, I was like, cool. I think Villa away is just not, to me, the place for Zinchenko. So Timber started, and Calafiori came in for 10 minutes. What did you make of, Timber's performance throughout the game, and then also that 10-minute cameo from Calafiori?
I thought Timber was good off the ball. I thought he was quite sharp. There was one time when Bailey took him on the outside and gave him a little shoulder barge. But I thought in his overall defensive play, I thought he was really good. When he inverted, I just think he struggled to find the space. I think Villa done really well at occupying the space and not committing to a press. So, I think he struggled on the ball a little bit. And so you lose that confidence in the middle of the pitch. And I don't know if Timber I'm not going to say was hiding. There are a few times when you thought he could have worked a little bit harder to find space in the middle and show for the ball. And he didn't do that as much as maybe what Zinchenko would. But defensively, he was solid. And that's probably the reason why we won that game. Because if Villa intercept a Zinchenko pass, or if they get round Zinchenko on a transition, that's probably where you can see the chance or concede a goal. So, I thought Timber was okay. I thought Calafiori was also okay. Once again, you can tell he's a little bit crazy. He had that little incident when he was kind of getting involved with Konza and Martinez, which I kind of like.
I loved it.
Yeah, he's straight away he's just on theme, and he understands what we're about. And yeah, listen, we got more left backs than we've got strikers. So it's a good thing to have, right? We can rotate these left backs for all different games. And yeah, I thought Calafiore was impressive. And as a side note, I still think we see Calafiore at centre back at some point this season. I still think that's something that we
we'll see
look at.
eventually.
Yeah.
I think I felt like that one meme where the guy is like sitting there listening to like the opening music of like a song, and he's just like, why is it already cold? That's how I felt about Calafiore. I'm like, am I begging it? Like, I thought it was like he looked really good, really good. And I think maybe this is confirmation bias from my perspective. Like, I'll be honest that like I don't love a right-footed player on the left as a fullback. I just think it makes it really obvious what you want to do, because you're never like Timber's never going to open up his hips and hit the ball down the line. Like, he's never going to do that, because that's just not. He's always going to try to get it over to his right, and I think that made it really obvious for Villa, like, to defend whatever he was trying to do on the ball. I don't think it wasn't as clever as it usually does feel. I feel like with Zinchenko, because he can hit the ball with his left into that channel. Timber's never going to do that. And so it's not that I think Timber played poorly. I just felt like, Calafiore's more like his movements felt more natural on that side. And, he had that one first time ball in behind. I think it might have been to Trossard.
Trossard, yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought you just don't get that with a right footer on that side. And so I'm interested to see what Arteta does for Brighton, because we'll be at home, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But, Brighton at home, does he go with the old faithful of Zinchenko coming in to try to dominate possession? Does he start integrating Calafiore in a little bit more aggressively, or does Timber keep his spot? We have so many different options, but I thought both players, did well with their respective minutes. So, yeah. Saliba.
Zinchenko looks pretty mad on the bench, didn't he? At one point, there was a picture of his face, just like really, really stern that he hadn't got any minutes.
Listen, he wasn't the only one, and we'll talk about Trossard too, because obviously that was a big storyline. Was that he didn't look happy, and then he didn't celebrate his goal. And like, is there a storm, a brewing, or anything like that? But you don't want players to be happy on the bench, and I think Zinchenko played really well in preseason, and I thought, he's going to kind of not turn a new leaf, because he's always going to be who he is, but, come in sharper. And I think he did that. But in the Wolves game, you still kind of saw a little bit of that frailty. And I think early on, Arteta deciding not to use him is probably a little bit of a wake-up call for him, because I would imagine Spurs away and Manchester City away, which are games that are right around the corner, will also be deemed non-Zinchenko games. So,
yeah, 100%. Which is probably why you have to give minutes to Timber and Calafiore, right? You have to get them up to speed. Imagine starting Calafiore in his first game, like Spurs away. Do you know what I mean? Or City away. Like,
exactly.
And Timber against, Kulusevski. Timber against, what's the name of the new Man City right winger?
Savinho.
Yeah, like that's probably who you want in those games, in those duels.
Mm-hmm.
So Zinchenko's just got to suck it up and be ready for the next game, and that's it. Like, yeah, agreed. Like what Nketiah said to Lokonga in that documentary, whatever he said.
Yeah.
Stop fucking moaning or whatever. Fix up. That's it.
Exactly. That was like one of Eddie's like top tier moments, like as an Arsenal player. That quote and him.
Oh, that's quite sad looking back on it, because it should be goals and celebrations. But yeah,
credit for the 2 goals against Chelsea randomly in that game that we beat them 4-2. I like that too. And him and Rice going at it, like, do you remember that game?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, when Rice was at West Ham.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they don't know each other.
We're talking about Nketiah like he's passed away, but one of his best moments I liked was it when he was in a circle playing, like doing a rondo, and him and Danny Ceballos had a little tiff.
Yes,
that was a good one as well. I like that.
Oh my gosh. Eddie moments for sure. But yeah, like, I think it's going to be really interesting to see who plays against Brighton, because you can make a case for any of the 3 of them playing. I think my choice, I'll keep that for the Brighton. I'll keep that for the Brighton preview. I keep them for. Okay, so I really do want to get into. I was going to go into Saliba, but I do want to talk about midfield because I feel like that is where it got a little weird for us. I think I rewatched the game and I was like, okay, early on, first 30 minutes of the game, we were on it. I thought Thomas Partey did a really good job cutting out their attacks. There were several times where they tried to get outlets through the middle and, on the wing to McGinn, and he would just snuff it out. As the game went on, that was not the case. Morgan Rogers looked like freaking Bellingham running through our midfield. And
Yeah,
it was like, he's a good player. I think, like, he is just a good player. So, sometimes good players do good things against you. But I did think that it opened up like a little bit of like oh shit, if we play against teams that have good carriers of the ball, we're going to get opened up. Is it just the case that, we ran out of steam and we were a little tired, maybe Declan Rice was too high? Or is there a real fear that, like, from your perspective, like, how do you think about it? Do you think that, Partey being at the base of midfield means that at a certain parts of the game we may get overrun? Because I felt like we got overrun, and I haven't seen us get overrun in midfield in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest though. I think it's a case of Rodgers physically being so strong and so good. Like, he moves with both feet so well. He finds the space. He eats up the space, and physically he's a specimen. So, like, sometimes you have to hold your hands up. I'm not saying that Rodgers is outrageously world class or he's undefendable, but look, Declan Rice physically is probably one of our best players, right? And Rodgers was pushing Declan Rice aside. So I think I'll be honest with you. I think Partey deserves a bit of credit as well, because the way he battled on during that game, I was really impressed with. Like, there were times when Rodgers left him, and he wasn't letting it go. He wasn't making it easy for him. Some good tactical fouls. Sometimes it's just a case of almost like genetics and physicality. And this guy Rodgers is just better in that area. I think we saw it Luton away last year. Even someone like Ross Barkley, who's a bit more of a mover and a glider, he had a game of his life against us, and we struggled to contain him. So sometimes it's about player types more so, maybe about like the Thomas Partey's future, or can Thomas Partey play 90 minutes, and is he the right man in this role? In this case, I think it's just a case that Rodgers had a really good game. I mean, he was using both feet, chopping, turning Rice. Like, he played really well. So I was impressed with Partey's ability to last that long, if anything. Like, the fact that he was still in the mix and still showing, because whilst he was getting beaten, it wasn't due to fatigue. It was just because the guy physically is faster than him. He was still running back, still putting in the effort, and then, came in with a vital goal. We can't be fickle and look at football and say, oh, he had a great game because he scored the goal, but we can say that he was there when it mattered as well. So
I think he was one of our better performers, to be honest. Like I said it on my post-match, I was like, a lot of people focused on the moments where Thomas Partey and Declan Rice could not contain Morgan Rogers. And that was like, if it's the last thing you kind of see, or it's like you already have a feeling about a player, that tends to be the story of the player's performance, when in reality, the whole first half, everything went through Thomas Partey. Everything good that we did was coming from him getting into those positions and passing the ball in between the lines. He had some good defensive intervention. He did tire towards the end of the game, but ultimately, like, he was one of our better performers and came up with a big goal. So it's kind of like, Thomas Partey, for me, we need to move away from him, but like, I'm not about to pretend like he wasn't one of our better performers. Like, he just was.
Yeah.
Like,
and also we do need to maybe move on from him, but the reality of it is that it's most likely going to stay, right? Unless something happens in the last couple of days in the window. So then, and then after Rice, whilst I really like Jorginho, you'd probably say Partey is your next best option. So you have to keep him fit and treat him fairly. And like you say, we already have an idea in our head just how there's this new thing about Declan Rice maybe looking a bit fatigued or not being ready to play. So now when Rodgers runs past him, it's like, oh, look, Rice isn't there. He's not match fit. And I don't think it's that case. I thought Partey and Rice did pretty well against a strong Villa midfield and a strong team.
Yeah, it's an odd fit. I think playing against a team like, an Unai Emery Aston Villa, he has a lot of ball carriers and strong players in midfield. And I think that's an odd fit for us, because that's not really, it's like what they want to do
Yeah.
is something that we struggle against. So naturally, we don't look as good. But when we play against Brighton at the weekend, I think two teams that want to control possession with less runners and more, just patterns of play and stuff like that will suit us more. So I think when you think about it from that perspective, I think we did a good job. And I agree with you. Like, I think they did as well as they could against a freaking freight truck. Like that guy he just had like a really, really good game.
Yeah.
Martinelli, we had a little temperature check on him.
Same as last week, right?
Yeah, last week, and then it feels pretty similar this past week. A lot of people are calling for Trossard to start, against Brighton. Do you feel like that's the answer, or that we need to persist with Martinelli?
Look, I mean, it is fine margins. He had that run on the fullback. I think it was Matty Cash when he kind of stopped and then played this outside of the football to Saka, which slowed the attack down. So you'd probably say there's a lack of confidence there when he really could have taken him on the outside. But in the same token, I don't mind him saying, do you know what, I'm not going to go on the outside because if I get to the bar line, I've got to kind of shank across and I'm going to try and switch it wide to Saka. But the ball was shit. So there's a lack of confidence there in execution. And then you had the moment when he played the ball across to Havertz. Now, if Havertz kind of does a Giroud finish where he flicks it behind him at the near post, you may be talking about a Martinelli assist. But he didn't get those moments, and then he kind of just drifted in and out of the game. There was a lot more space for Martinelli in this game as well. And there was a new fullback. I can't remember the name of the Villa player.
Against a young fullback, I expect you to get the better of that player.
And this is what I mentioned last week, like kind of saying, making it a one-on-one battle with that opponent and saying, I'm going to embarrass you. And he didn't do that enough. And I don't know if that's a confidence issue or an ability issue. So I probably think, I don't know how many tokens he's got left to start. I have a feeling that you have to start Trossard in the next game. But it's really tough with Martinelli now because you can feel the narrative developing, and we have to be careful that we're not too harsh on him. But the lack of confidence is clear to see. And when he came off the bench, when he went to the bench, I'm not sure if you saw, like, he had a conversation with Zinchenko, and it's almost like Zinchenko said to him, "What was that?" And Martinelli's like, "I was fucking shit," or that was not good. So I feel like he can feel it now, and it's being discussed by the commentators and the fans, and then things start to develop. So
he's in poor form, right? I don't think like we're just saying it, and nobody else is like he probably knows more than anybody that it's not going well. And I think then you have somebody like Trossard who wears his emotions on his sleeve, who definitely agitates when he's not playing. I think. You have somebody like that that's probably like, well, why not just start me? Then he comes out there and he scores in his first touch. And I get the argument that like Trossard, in games where he started, doesn't necessarily always have the best moments himself. He's had games where he started, multiple games where, he doesn't have the best moments, he doesn't have the best touches. I just think at this point, because neither option is perfect, you have to go with at least the player that's in form. Trossard at his best is going to take bad touches, is going to lose the ball, be a little selfish, but he's probably going to get you a goal. Martinelli right now looks so far away from scoring goals that it's so hard to justify him starting right now. And I just think, unless Arteta wants to expedite Merino into the team and Calafiori or whoever in the team on the left and try to get some sort of synergy going there, if he's going to persist with Havertz at center forward and Rice at the left center mid, he has to start Trossard because at least I think they combine better. I would guess that like Kai Havertz and Martinelli have passed the ball to each other maybe like a handful of times. They don't connect. They don't have any synergy. But then when you see Trossard come on, all of a sudden him and Havertz are combining. And I think you have to go to relationships at this stage over just like Martinelli's our better player, so he starts.
Yeah, I just think Arteta wants that one pace outlet. And you don't have that in Havertz. And you don't necessarily have that in Saka, if that makes sense. Saka is more of a ball-to-feet kind of player. And you'd say that with Trossard, he does slow the game down a little bit. So maybe that's a reservation for for Arteta. I think when you're bringing on a player, the dynamics of the game is totally different. The game is stretched. It's more end to end. The defenders are tired. So someone with fresh legs should make an impact, which is exactly what Trossard is doing. I do think if you were to replace Martinelli for Trossard against Villa, Martinelli probably makes a similar impact in terms of just arriving in the box, because I just think that's the way the game goes. So, yeah, there is a big decision for Arteta to make. And annoyingly, whatever decision it is, it feels like it's not the long-term decision. And that's the thing that grates me a little bit. I'm like, well, I know if Trossard plays well, he'll do it for a few games and he'll probably drop off, and then we'll try Martinelli again.
Sure.
So really, you want someone to like step forward and replicate what Saka is doing on the right-hand side. But yeah, so big few weeks for Martinelli. I agree with you. I think Trossard does start, one, because it's against Brighton. I think that helps having an extra motivation. And I think Martinelli coming off the bench is probably the next best option to get him back into form. I think that's the next best thing. And I think giving him a run through the middle is also worth a shout. I think we need to do something to spark that confident Martinelli. And that might come from a goal or a goal involvement or just a chaotic, fun Martinelli performance. But at the minute, when he's getting the ball on the left, it is just, it's Rashford vibes, it's Raheem Sterling vibes, it's Walcott towards the end of his Arsenal career vibes. It's just no confidence, no sharpness, wrong decisions, and it's just not happening for him.
I agree 110%. Last thing before we move on, a couple words on Raya's performance, because he definitely keeps us in that game. Ollie Watkins being a bad finisher for the first time in his whole life, helps, on that first one where they pick it off of Gabriel. And
was that a foul, by the way, to you? Is that a foul on Gabriel? One of those. I feel like it's a foul.
I don't know if I think it's one of those where I'm like, if Kai Havertz does that to Konsa, they call it immediately.
But also, if Gabriel is in the corner, just say he's in the corner of the corner of the pitch and he's defending the ball as it goes out, and Watkins removed him like that, that would be a foul to the defender. Yeah, I feel like because it was Watkins capitalising on an error from Gabriel, like the narrative was like to play on.
Oh, yeah, of course. But we have to remember that Gabriel rarely gets calls. When we played against Newcastle away from home, any other time that would have been called as a foul. If Kai Havertz does that to the opposition, they call it. But because it's Gabriel, they don't. And I think that's because there are times where he does perform a little bit. And so you don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. And then also it's he made a mistake. He's the bozo,
It's the David Luiz syndrome. Yeah, that's the same thing happens with David Luiz, but yeah.
Yeah, so I knew they weren't gonna if Ollie Watkins scores, that is they're gonna say it's a goal. They're not gonna call it back. We know they're not gonna call it back. But Raya, there's a second opportunity where Onana heads it and it hits out the bar, and then Ollie Watkins does a diving header. That was gonna be his moment, and Raya just because he had another save too that was smaller on the ground, but it was just I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, what a save. I think Neville mentioned it in his post-match podcast, but if you challenge anyone to jump backwards, fall on your backside and get up that quickly, honestly, it's incredible. And people criticizing Watkins for the finish, I think is really harsh, because the ball comes at him so quickly at an angle. His body is already in a position where he's straight on. So you can see he kind of tries to angle his head and his shoulders to head it towards the corner of the goal. But just because of the speed of the ball coming back to him and the fact how quickly he has to dive to head the ball, he can't do it. So I think it's really harsh to say that Watkins should have scored. I think it's an incredibly hard finish. But Raya, the reflexes are unbelievable. And you saw on the bench cam, I think it's our young goalkeeper watching on, who was clapped in amazement, because incredible save. I think one of the saves of the season for sure. And I'd like everyone to literally now in their living room fall back and see how quickly you can get back up, because it's just madness how he does it. I couldn't get over it. Couldn't get over when I was watching it how quickly he literally gathers back, tries to tip it over the bar, falls back, and then he's up so quick. That's just your brain muscle memory going into overdrive. It's fucking incredible. And I thought Raya was really, really good. Same. And and the confidence on the ball. I think in the first half there was a time when just had the ball at the back and it was stud roll, looked left, stud roll, looked right, played it, got it back, and I was thinking, man, this guy is he's a futsal player. He's a five-a-side footballer playing in goal, and those saves are good because it just raises his pedigree, and makes everyone realise how lucky we are to have a really, really strong keeper.
Yeah, for sure. That kind of leads me into, the conversation around like what's going on today with Ramsdale, Southampton, in for him,
It's harsh, man. I think it's harsh.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. It's harsh because I totally get that. I totally get that football is a business and it's ruthless. And he would have extended his contract with the hope of being our long-term number one. And we probably saw an opportunity for Raya, and we took it. So it's harsh. It's also harsh that a move to a club like Newcastle couldn't have been facilitated because of maybe poor relations with Newcastle. It's harsh that maybe
of how good is that reflective of what kind of goalkeeper he is, that he's linked with Wolves and Southampton and Bournemouth and not like better sides. I feel like it's, you know what I mean?
I think a lot of it is circumstantial though, because I think Chelsea, he was linked to Chelsea as well, right? But they have Sanchez, they have about 84 goalkeepers. So I think a lot of it is just what other top six club is looking for a goalkeeper and where could he realistically go? If you look at Man City, obviously no. You look at Liverpool, that's a no. Spurs seem happy with their keeper. Villa have got Martinez. Like where do you go? And then how much will they spend on him? And are they going to pay his wages? That's probably the stumbling block for Ramsdale, is that he signed a contract extension on more wages, which is now a hindrance to him to get a move. And that's where perhaps the club could have been more honest. And I think that's where it's unfair. But in the same token, Ramsdale could say to the club, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm going to sit here earning 100k a week. Thanks very much. And I'll take the money. So it kind of works both ways, but I do feel for him. And it would be a shame to see him be involved in maybe like a relegation battle at Southampton where he's getting peppered every week. And then his stock really goes down. And then you've got a Jack Butland, Dean Henderson. Though? Sorry?
Isn't that his bread and butter, though? I mean, I feel like...
Yeah, but I don't think he wants another...
that he's better when he's getting peppered than when he has to wait for the one chance.
So maybe so, but maybe there's a balance between getting peppered and like getting peppered.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then I feel like then you're in a Dean Henderson, Jack Butland kind of scenario where you're playing at a Premier League club, and next thing you know, you're in a Championship and you're trying to get a move. So yeah, so for him personally, I feel a little bit sorry for him, but we do have to sell him and we do have to move him on. And it's clear that he's not happy being number two, and neither should he. But I would have hoped he could have got a better move to a Premier League club, but. Maybe Southampton will surprise us, have a really good season, and he'll have a good season. But can't forget, he was in the team of the season a few years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because it wasn't too long ago where I remember Arsenal fans obviously these reports and these statistics are not always like super accurate, but I think like the CIS report had come out that like Ramsdale was the most expensive or most valuable goalkeeper in the world, like worth like 75 million or something like that after our first season, I think challenging for the title. So, to go from that to where we are now is like, it is sad. And I do think that like, just from like Arsenal perspective of moving him on, I still think that this deal with Southampton is very much so in the balance because Arsenal want a loan with an obligation. And I don't think a team that envisions themselves in a relegation scrap are going to want to, commit to buying Ramsdale for 30 million this season after if they do get relegated. So I'm not quite sure how we get this going. I feel like it might end up being something like a loan with an option. But if we stay up, it becomes an obligation. But what I think for sure is that Arsenal do have money saved on the side for the backup goalkeeper, which I know is going to, when we put in that first bid for Juan Garcia, I just know I will not be there. I will not be there. I will not.
No, you will. You'll be doing a live stream, losing your shit. That's what you'll be doing.
I will be there, but I will I wish I don't have to be there because it's just like, if we don't get an attacker, you just know that it's just going to be like another goalkeeper, and I kind of feel that way too, but like, I know my club.
Well, they're two separate issues, aren't they? We have to say that signing a backup goalkeeper doesn't affect signing the right forward. It won't. There's no way it's going to be one or the other. We know that. Like, that's factual. Arteta's not going to say to Eddie Wright, preference a 20 million backup goalkeeper over a left winger or a backup for Saka. But we just know that it's looking that the backup goalkeeper is a possibility, but the backup forward is not a possibility. That's what it feels like. So naturally, what we'll do is, or most football fans will go and lose their shit, which is what they'll do, right? Which is what everyone does, including me sometimes. But I'm not going to lose my shit. I'm not going to lose my shit because I have faith in this squad. And there's 2 transfer windows this season, and both are just as important as each other. And whilst we've lost Vieira and Emil Smith-Rowe and Nketiah, they hardly played last season. I know Nketiah played more minutes, but they hardly contributed last season. And from January, we gained a forward in Havertz. So what we have to ask ourselves is, what is the likeliness of Saka, Martinelli, Havertz, and Trossard all picking up big injuries from now to January? You'd like to think it's pretty slim. And then do we have enough on the bench for one of those players to step in permanently until January? I'd like to think so. Of course, I'd like a forward at the club, but I don't think we can be in meltdown situation, especially when we know how good we are, when we've just started off the season really confidently, and when we know that we have Havertz, Martinelli, Trossard, Saka, and Jesus. Of course, there's Nelson in the background, which we'd all agree that it's probably time for him to move on, but we can't act like we've got no players who can play in those positions, you know. And Trossard, Martinelli, Jesus, they all give you versatility. I know Jesus is out at the moment, so we definitely need to sign someone, but we have enough to get through to January. So I can't bring myself to get angry about it, because then I'll get angry about it and I'll totally contradict what I've just said and say it's bullshit and we should have signed someone and we had all summer, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, I want to share your glass half full, but I just feel like we've won bad, you know, and I've said it so many times why I feel that way, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we just need to get in an attacker. What we have is not enough.
Do you know what my biggest worry is? My biggest worry is Ødegaard. That's my biggest worry. Because if you take Ødegaard out of that team, there's no one who can do what he do. No one who can play the way he plays, who can pick up the ball, who can create. So from my perspective, like I'd settle for our front 6 or front 5 plus Nelson over and prioritize a number 10 or a number 8, a right-sided number 8.
Well, so here's my thing is like I do agree that if Ødegaard were to not play or not be able to play, it would be, every team has players like that though. They have their Sakas and their Ødegaards where if those players got injured, that's it. And I think those are our players for us, Saliba probably as well in that group. But I do think that Merino, who, just was announced yesterday, also can play right center mid. He can play left center mid. He can play in the 6. And I know that we only really got to see Kai and one time play right center mid and it didn't work against Newcastle away, but I still feel like I think Merino is going to surprise people in how much sturdier he's going to make us with his ability to play multiple positions in midfield. I saw something from, the Athletic saying that, the view is for him to play left center mid and for Rice to drop back to the 6 and Ødegaard to play on the right, which is music to my ears. But, he can also play as a 6, and for Sociedad, he did pop up on the right. Our biggest issue, I feel like, is that we never had another midfielder that could step in other positions. We had Emil, who I know that's like, he's a midfielder, but he's a number 10 that also plays on the wing. You had Fabio Vieira, who's a 10, but also can kind of play on the wing. They're not people that play in midfield, not in the meat of midfield where you have to battle, where you have to drop deep, where you have to control tempo, where you have to pass the ball a lot. They were the player, like that extra guy. And I think Merino can play all of those positions at a good enough level where if Ødegaard were to get injured, he'd be my first choice. And then we have to trust, Ethan. I don't feel like there's any reason to allow him to be in this first team if, if he has to play minutes, we're shitting bricks. I actually am a lot more confident in him than I feel like I was in, Fabio or Emil being able to step in, because I've seen him actually attempt to do those things and he'll make mistakes. But yeah, he could be a little bit of a Rico Lewis, But
okay,
did you watch any of the Merino stuff yesterday? Any of his interview or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. I like how we always seem to sign players who used to support Arsenal in some capacity. Don't know how we keep doing that. I feel like fair play to. It's funny because it's almost like a praise to Wenger as well, because what you realise is that you have this super team, and then the generation of players now in their mid to late 20s would have followed Arsenal because of Arsene Wenger and Thierry Henry and Vieira, and then that gives them an extra reason to come and play for Arsenal. So I love the fact that he's wearing an Arsenal kit and recreating those poses. I like the way he talks. He obviously has good English from his time in England already with Newcastle. It's also good to see what it would look like if Arteta and Edu had a baby, because he's
He
like the
looks just
mixture.
like them.
He's like
That
the
picture of
mixture
them
of
all
them two.
together.
I know, honestly, it's weird. I'm not sure who gave birth, Edu or Arteta, but yeah, they look exactly the same. It's really, really strange to watch. But yeah, I've only seen him play that left 8 role. So if you're telling me he's a little bit more versatile, then great. But yeah, really pleased to have him on board. It means I can stop talking about Granit Xhaka finally. And I feel like we're just going to see him slotting, and I think he will surprise a few players. And he's another 6'2", 6'3" plus signing. So gone are the days of smaller, tricky midfielders. We are a beast of a team now. Like, we are physically so strong, and it's so important. And I love that Arteta has highlighted that as an importance. Because if you think about what people used to accuse Arsenal of, was being pushovers, being soft, defensively weak, not reading the game, conceding like last minute equalisers and that sort of stuff. And you looked up, there's a stat going around a few days ago about our clean sheets away. It's like conceded 3 goals in the last 10, 11 away games or something like that. 8, 9 clean sheets. It's like Arteta has changed the reputation of this club externally and internally, but also of how we play football. And we're not like a tippy tappy team who just aren't up for the away games on a cold night. We are strong. So yeah, really looking forward to Merino playing. I think he'll slot in really, really well. I can already see him linking up with Zinchenko, with Havertz. I can see it. I think they'll form a nice little understanding together, and I think that will give a new lease of life for other players. Hopefully for Martinelli, hopefully for Trossard, because we can see Declan Rice in the 6, and we can see the full potential of this team and this midfield. Because that midfield, right, is where it's at for us. I think when we're on fire, Rice is unstoppable, Ødegaard is unstoppable, and then in turn Saka becomes that player, and then your left winger becomes that player. So add Merino to that. I think it ties everything in well, and I think we'll see hopefully a new lease of life in that midfield.
Yeah, I just think he's an insurance policy if anything happens to Ødegaard or Declan Rice. I love the signing. I think bringing somebody in a little bit more experienced is just so good. Somebody that just knows what to do. I think we had too many experiments, for the midfield position. We were trying to play Trossard there. We were playing Kai there. We were trying to play Emil and Fabio. Too many experiments. Like, I just know that Marino's just going to like get in and like know what to do. I wish that he could start against Brighton because I'm desperate to just see somebody new, but I don't think that'll happen. Are we anticipating the same lineup? What do you think?
Will he start? No, you're probably.
He's not
really.
Miss Partey after the game that he had against Villa.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, he won't start. He'll make a cameo. He's 28, right? Merino, is that right? 28.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he might be a bit of like a signing like Santi for us. I think he could become like a bit of a cult hero. Where, if we're being honest, before Cazorla came, I don't think many people knew of Cazorla. I don't think he was like a household name, but he came and he had a really good affiliation with the club. So I'm hoping Merino can form that sort of relationship with the fans. But yeah, maybe he won't. No, he won't start. You're right. It feels like a good game for him to start because it will be a very technical game. So I feel like it's a game where he could slot in. And I
for Spurs, if that's like the big game that you're going for, you could rest Partey for Spurs, if that's what you're going to go with and integrate. I think at some stage you do have to rip the Band-Aid off and let some of these guys play. I know that we're like you cannot drop points, but you brought in players that are like, they're not children. I know Calafiori.
You are right. Yeah.
But he's not a kid. He can come out there and play. Merino can come out there and play. Maybe even just for a cameo or whatever at the 60th minute. But I kind of expect to see both of them play a little bit of a part. And I'm just interested to see who's going to play left back. Who would you play at left back? Like, not what do you think Arteta is going to do? But
Yeah, I'd go with Zinchenko again. I would, just
Okay.
because I think it'll be more of a technical game, and I think we can afford that risk. I know. Then again, Brighton are sharp up front, and you can see someone like Welbeck almost playing off
Well,
Zinchenko a little bit,
Minte
and
or
João Pedro. Yeah,
those are the types of players that would be. I mean, every team in the Premier League, bar like maybe one or two or three, are going to have somebody on the wing that's could toast Zinchenko. That is the risk that you're running when you play him. So
yeah. I just feel like if we want to impose our game, then you can start Zinchenko. And then what usually happens is against a team outside of the top six, we go 1-0 up, we go 2-0 up, we get a little bit panicky, and that's when you make the Zinchenko change. But you could see against Villa, whilst we didn't start terribly against Villa, we didn't necessarily impose our game. And I think that's the risk you run when you don't start Zinchenko. Now, maybe Timber can grow into that role, and when he plays inverted, he can pick up the ball a lot more and be more confident. And maybe at home, he will do that. But yeah, I would go with Zinchenko, but I don't know if that's because I just like Zinchenko and I don't want to phase him out. Because the truth is, if you get good results against Spurs and Man City, playing Calafiore or Timber, then Zinchenko is going to struggle. And I don't feel like if you start the first home game of the season, I don't think Arteta has in his mind to drop Zinchenko from the team completely for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 games and beyond. I feel like Arteta wants to use Zinchenko, so I think I'll go with Zinny to start.
So I'm gonna throw. I would start Calafiore. I don't care.
Wow.
I would start Calafiore. I just feel like that's what he was bought for. So just play him in the position that we bought him for. You spend 37 million on somebody that's gonna play left back. You're not gonna drop Gabriel. Just play him. I think the sooner that Gabriel and him create some sort of connection, the better. And I feel like Timber's long-term future is on the right, battling with White. I know that it's uncomfortable because it's like Ben has always kind of been like the ever constant, but I do think Timber would offer something different on the right. I'm not saying drop Ben. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, you are. That's what you're practically saying.
I'm not saying drop him. I'm saying Timber and White on the right and Zinchenko and Calafiore on the left. Like it just left footers on the left side, right footers on the right side. I don't see why we wouldn't. If Timber was always meant to play on the left, why do we buy Calafiore? Like I don't understand. Because you're not dropping Gabriel. You're not. Like eventually maybe a Gabriel, I just don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think long term, I do think Calafiore replaces Gabriel. I think yeah, I do. I think Arteta, just as a side thought, obviously I really like Gabriel, but I think his bozo moments are something that Arteta would have eventually run out of patience for. Whereas with Zinchenko, it's fine, by the way. Zinchenko can have as many bozo moments as he wants.
Arteta loves his old city people. That's for sure. You definitely have a soft spot for them for sure. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. It'll probably be Timber. Because Zinny and I did Calafiore, so it's probably going to be Timber.
Yeah, I understand about Calafiore. Yeah, I understand what you're saying that because also away at Spurs or away at Man City as well, you can certainly imagine that Calafiore away at Man City is the player that you'd want to play. But yeah, then he will need those minutes, right? Surely you can't get that match sharp as just from 10-minute cameos. And then throwing him in at Man City away is pretty hard, isn't it? So yeah, options are good.
Let's get it going. Let's go. Calafiore, Merino at left center mid. Let's get it going.
True.
But
true. And Brighton's a good game to do it against, right? It's a home fixture.
Yeah, but I could also start kind of waiting until after we get beyond, because once we get beyond this Man City game, then the fixtures become #easier, and I could see maybe him waiting because Merino also hasn't done anything since the Euros, so
Arteta is quite good at that as well. I don't know if you remember when Ramsdale first came in to replace Leno. He gave Leno those games at the beginning of the season. I think it was Chelsea at home, gave Leno Man City away, and then he put in Ramsdale. Because it's like you don't want to start someone off the back of 2 heavy defeats. So yeah, he might do that as well. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will wait and see. But guys, that is the end of the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. When you guys are watching this, it'll probably be early Thursday morning. So yeah, make sure you guys like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And also get into the comments and let us know what you guys think about what we spoke about. Let's get some score predictions and head on out. Score prediction for Brighton.
2-0, which I think has been my prediction for the last 2 games as well. I'm pretty sure we predicted 2-0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2-0.
So I'm going to go 2-0 again.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go 3-0. I think we're gonna dominate. That's
I hope
what
so.
I'm thinking. Yeah, I need a 3-0. So yeah, and we definitely need to keep those clean sheets going because I'm liking that feeling.
I am, but Danny Welbeck is on fire though. We've got to give respect to Danny Welbeck, man. Absolutely on fire.
You love him. You love him.
He's looking sharp, man. I'm telling you, if you want to sign a backup striker, there's your man. Go get him. Go bring him home. Danny Welbeck is aged so well, man. He's good, solid centre forward. He's started the season really well.
We're gonna make like a Harry's, nostalgia 11.
Average base 11.
I know Welbeck is in there. I know.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
I know Holding is in there. Should have made the England squad, and Chambers. I know those guys are in there. Is Chesney in there too?
Well, he would have been, but he's retired. Holding can't make the Crystal Palace squad at the moment, let alone an England squad. So I feel a bit sorry for Holding. But yeah, listen, those are dark days. But yeah, I do like Welbeck. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll tell you what, who's better though, Nketiah or Welbeck?
Welbeck.
Yeah, so there you go. So it's not an outlandish shout to say Welbeck could be part of this Arsenal setup, is it? If we were bringing on Welbeck for 20 minutes to go in the game, you wouldn't be too sad. I wouldn't be too sad. I'm not saying we're going to win, but I wouldn't be sad.
I'm not saying we're going to win, but I wouldn't be sad. Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm just saying.
My God. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to do your nostalgia. I'm going to guess it because I feel like we've been potting long enough where I could guess which players would be in that 11. Like, I feel like it's so clear. It's so clear.
I know it is, yeah. Basically, if they're average, out of contract, injured, underperforming, have any sort of headspace issues, they're in my team. That's what. That. I am the leader of that team. A charity 11.
I love it. Guys, give us your predictions in the comment section, and we will talk to you guys on the next one. Hopefully, we'll be talking about our 3rd win of the season and a 4 that is coming to the Arsenal. Bye, guys.